Welcome to PeopleMetrics Live. Today, we're going to be reviewing best practices for developing a customer experience strategy. Before we begin, Sean, I want to zoom way out and talk actually about the word strategy and how do you define that word strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a term that's thrown around a lot. I don't think it's necessarily well defined or understood. And it really goes back to, military times in the Roman Empire. That's where I think it began. And it was about militaries allocating troops to different places so they could win wars and things, right? So you don't have unlimited number of troops back then. So they had to allocate them in different positions in order to win battles and things like that. But it applies very much to, I think, corporate strategy and our topic today, customer experience strategy. No company, even the biggest ones like Apple and Amazon, have unlimited resources. It might seem like they do, but they don't, right? Everybody has limited resources. And people need to choose kind of where to put those resources to allocate the biggest return for their investment, right? And that happens across all kind of disciplines, and customer experience is, no different. So, when you're thinking, if you're head of customer experience, or you're involved in figuring out how to create a great customer experience for your customers or clients, you have a lot of different kind of ideas and areas that you could focus your investment in. But, the strategy part is really thinking through what's the best place to put our resources. How can we then deliver, a great customer experience? And when we don't, how do we make sure we can follow up and make sure that those customers who don't receive that experience feel like we care that they didn't, and make up for it somehow. Some other definitions of strategy I've seen is around strategy is a lot of thinking, activity, and planning. And like I don't even know what you call this. I've heard this too, like strategy is doing things right. Or strategy is doing the right things and tactics are doing things right. So strategy is about doing the right things. And once you decide what the right things are, then it goes into tactics, and you want to make sure you're doing those things right. Maybe, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great overview. I was just going to say, we all wish it could be as easy as just, clicking a button and having our goals be met and problems be solved. But, it takes that extra, thinking around what are your goals exactly, and what do you need to do to get there. And I know that we're going to go through how that applies to CX strategy in particular today.
So Courtney here works on a lot of our accounts, and Courtney, we probably see this happen. Clients want to do a program, even if it's a new client, existing client, and they're like, well, let's get to the questionnaire. And I want to get the questionnaire done, but there's some big decisions to be made before that even occurs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things that you should touch on with the client, obviously, before diving right into the survey design. One of which is the goals that they're trying to reach by implementing the survey. So there are tangible goals like measuring certain things like NPS, Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction. Agree, disagree statements, things like that. But then there are also those ambition statements that maybe some companies are working towards, like improving company culture, something not necessarily that you can directly measure per se. It's not exactly a number. There's a lot of different things that you want to talk about and kind of figure out what's the main goal, what do you want to get out of the survey, and in turn, what do you want to do with that data once you have it?
Right, like that why, and I think you're touching on all the whys, like why are you starting this program to begin with, right? Why is it? And making sure that the key stakeholders are aligned on that why, right? And Madeline, I think we may have even a little graphic to show people today, correct?
We do.
The why is so important. I mean, Courtney just went through a few of these. Why are you starting a customer experience, program? And why, or if you have one, why are you changing it, or why are you looking to improve it? What isn't working now? What needs to be better? Are you investing a lot in creating a great experience for your customers, either through, digital assets or more, or a different in-person experience, or you're shifting from a digital to kind of a hybrid experience after COVID, is your basic delivery model different than it was before the pandemic, and you need to kind of take a look at different aspects of the customer experience. But this why is really, really important. And I think a lot of people, Courtney, want to rush over this one, but I don't think there could be a more important step to creating, a really good customer experience program.
Exactly. Yeah, it's totally the foundation of the program. And you obviously don't want to go through designing a survey and sending it out and getting feedback that isn't ultimately going to be useful, and actually, turn into some action items for the organization.
Right. And I challenge people whose only goal is NPS. Yeah, NPS is a great goal. And the nice thing is it's a corporate goal that everybody understands. And that's Net Promoter Score for people who are unfamiliar. And that's a score that's a question that basically is, how likely are you to be to recommend whatever company is to friends or family? It's on a 0 to 10 point scale. 0 is unlikely to recommend. 10 is very likely to recommend. And then they have these categories. 9s and 10s are called promoters. People who say 0 to 6 are detractors. 7 and 8s are passives. And Net Promoter Score is subtracting the detractors from promoters. So it's a 0 to 100 score. Almost every company now does something with NPS, from what I've seen, right, Courtney? I can't think of many of our clients that don't at least measure this.
Yeah, 100%. NPS is probably the most commonly used metric. And then I would say followed by customer satisfaction.
Right. And they're certainly related in many ways. We can talk about that in a second. But, NPS is a great goal, but just to improve NPS for the sake of it is never, I think, a defining best practice goal. You have to have, I think, something a little deeper than that. And you don't want it to be, I believe the best programs are not check the box programs. The best customer experience programs are ones that truly impact company culture. And if everybody's focused just on this metric, and we've all been to these places where, where was I the other day? Someone was helping with the cable and they said to me, you're going to be getting a survey after this shortly. And if you don't give me at least a 9, it's not going to count. Nothing else matters unless you give me a 9 or 10. And then what you have is people kind of manipulating the scale and the process in order to get these scores. And then what are you really accomplishing then? I'm sure we've all, right? Madeline, Courtney, you must have experienced such things, right? In your day-to-day life, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's so important. I mean, just looking at what we've got on the screen here, talking about reducing churn, expanding existing accounts, there's other outcomes that come from a customer experience program beyond improving the actual customer experience. So I think it's important too for folks to know that these are some of the things that can come out of it. Yes, you can improve your NPS, but there's also these other great outcomes that are much more, like you said, kind of culture wide, company wide, big outcomes that can come from a program like this. So you can set your sights bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's interesting to think about Net Promoter Score as the umbrella, and there are other things, like you said, Madeline, that can come from the NPS score, such as company culture improving, reducing churn, expanding existing accounts through people actually recommending the company itself. So NPS is one aspect, a very important aspect, but I think there are a lot of other things that can be touched on when designing a survey.
Hi, it's Madeline. Thanks for joining us for PeopleMetrics Live. If this is your first time watching, PeopleMetrics Live is a weekly live webinar session where experts from our team answer your questions about customer, employee, and patient experience measurement and management. And sometimes we show you how you can achieve your goals using tools within our experience management platform. We've been doing this for over 2 decades now, and this is a great way for us to share our knowledge with you. You can sign up for upcoming sessions of PeopleMetrics Live at www.peoplemetrics.com/events and bring a friend.
And some people who are on here today might be saying, well, what do you mean by company culture? How can you have a goal around that? Let me take 1 minute on that. So customer-centric cultures are what everybody wants, right? And it's the first chapter in my book, Listen or Die, right? It's all about, everybody wants to be customer-centric, but in what I say in that book, nobody knows what that means. Nobody meaning the employees. They don't know what that means. Like, they don't know the behaviors they need to exhibit in order for this company to be customer-centric. But if customer-centric culture is your goal, what you can do is you can start setting up like little mini goals around customer-centric culture. So as part of our programs, we set up something, and we've done PeopleMetrics Lives on this, called real-time alerts, right? So a real-time alert is when a customer has a poor experience based on some criteria. It could be that they're a detractor in NPS. It could be that they indicated they had a problem. It could be, like Courtney said, overall satisfaction with the most recent experience was not good, right? So there's all these things that you can trigger this alert. And what we have our clients doing is they follow up on those alerts consistently, and they close them out, right? And they work them. And that process changes a culture. Why? Because every day there's a group of people at the company, and sometimes a lot of people, who are looking at customer feedback, understanding what customers didn't have, why customers didn't have a great experience the day before, talking to that customer in some way, understanding it deeply, and closing that loop. Just by understanding that means that the company culture is improving. So you could have goals around, X number of customers contacted based on their feedback over this year. Or you could have a goal on positive customer alerts, right? Courtney, we also have those, where a customer says, hey, this employee went above and beyond for me in the most recent experience, explaining why. You could have goals around, well, we want to have X number of those coming in this year, or a percentage increase compared to the year before, right? And those type of things really change the culture as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one of my healthcare clients, they actually have a kudos email alert, and they also have what's called a bottom box alert, which is kind of what Sean was talking about. The kudos alert is really notifying them when they had someone who had a positive experience with the company. It's good for people to also get those alerts. You don't always want to be just getting the negative alerts, and it's good to get the positive alerts and know what you're doing right as well. But then it's also important to kind of get those alerts that touch on things that maybe could be improved upon. And, another one of my clients in actually the banking industry actually asked me, what's the best thing that we can do with these alerts? Like, what should we do? And I said, the best thing to do is really follow up with them and let them know that they're heard. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have, this is what we did to solve the problem that you had. Of course, that's the ultimate goal. But in the end, if you can just respond and say, hey, we hear you, we're working on it, we will be in touch, we appreciate your feedback. Oftentimes that's enough. And of course, you do want to take the extra step to hopefully follow through with whatever issue they might have had. But simply just having that connection and using those alerts to kind of touch base with customers is certainly very important.
All right. So why it's always good to take a step back and figure out, what are your goals? Why are you doing this? And how are you creating the best program you can? Now we get into who and when. So another piece to strategy is not only why, but who do you want to reach out to? Like, who is your customer that you really want to understand their experience? And two, what is the moment of truth that you want to hone in on around that customer? So let's just give an example. Maybe you have, a B2B and B2C customer. Maybe you're a bank and you have retail and commercial customers, right? So you have people coming to the branch, you have commercial business as well. Which one of those groups do you really want to target right now, right? Maybe it's the commercial group, right? And out of those people, what are their moments of truth? Well, maybe it's the lending process. That's the moment of truth that you're feeling like that's the most lucrative part of your business. That's something that if it goes wrong, it could impact the relationship for many other loans in the future. Who knows? So it's all about understanding what is that moment of truth. And Madeline, I've defined this a bunch of times, but I think the best way to define this is think about all the interactions with your customer and think about the one, if it goes wrong, you're going to feel the most pain and the customer's going to feel the most pain. Yep. Right. So what are those moments of truth? And right, Courtney, like all of our clients have to make this decision, right? Especially on the moments of truth. Sometimes there's only one customer type and then it's easy. Like, well, we just have one, but then it becomes, they're always interacting with them probably on multiple channels, right? Whether it's in person, on a call center, digitally, you know, in a variety, maybe in home, maybe in store, et cetera. And this is a key part of CX strategy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You know, and depending on the type of survey that you are sending out, some maybe it's a more general survey to your entire population of the customers that you're trying to reach. And sometimes it's a more niche group. So I know for one of my clients, for instance, their survey is focused around people that have not actually been at their place of business in a certain amount of time. So instead of just simply being the entire customer population, it's actually only sent to the people who have not been to the particular place of business within X amount of time. So 3 months or something like that. So yeah, so there are definitely different audiences that you can, you know, hone in on depending on, you know, what you're trying to ask and what information you're trying to get out.
Did you know that you can watch past sessions of PeopleMetrics live right here on our YouTube channel? All you have to do is click the link above. Be sure to check them out for answers to dozens of questions, along with stories, tips, short tutorials, and best practices from our team of experts. Click the bottom right corner of this video to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an update.
That's a great example, Courtney. And we've also have lots of clients who do, say, new customer type programs where they want to understand in detail the experience of a new customer or client. So they specifically look at those customers. And, you know, why that goes back to the why. Maybe the business that you're in, you are able to get a lot of customers, but they leave after a certain number of months. If that's the case, creating a program around new customers to really follow their journey is really, really important.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, go ahead, Courtney.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've done a lot of PeopleMetrics live sessions that touch on that moment of truth. And I think it's a great, you know, looking at these examples that we're giving in terms of best practices strategy. A theme that I'm already seeing here is focus, right? And you have to choose where you're going to work first, because you can't do, like you said, Sean, you can't do it all. So defining those really crucial touch points is really important.
Right. And we're going right back to the definition of strategy, right? Limited resources, limited amounts of time, limited amounts of energy, really, to do the third part of this diagram too, which we'll get to, is, you know, after you figure out your goal and figure out who you're going to reach out to and when, which is the moment of truth, it's okay. How are you going to take action and really use their feedback in a way that changes the business and changes the experiences of those customers or future customers? And Courtney, like, this is kind of your life, right? These things at PeopleMetrics. I mean, you have a life outside of PeopleMetrics. We know that.
Yeah.
But every day at PeopleMetrics, you're helping clients with these things and more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think obviously the most important thing is getting people to actually respond to the surveys. So that's extremely important. And there are a lot of things that can be done, little nuanced things that you wouldn't otherwise think of, that can maybe help people respond more often. So, you know, whenever you're sending out the actual survey, whether it's via email or mobile, you can make the subject line super inviting, maybe personalize it with the actual customer's name. You can let them know in the body of the email or the text that it's a short survey and that it's only going to take 1 to 2 to 3 minutes of their time. Things like that. Also, actually putting the first question of the survey in the email or the text message is often more likely to get the person to click on it and then open up the entire survey and actually finish it. So things like that, and you know, sending follow-up emails to know that, like, hey, we're still looking for feedback from you. We appreciate it. We want to know how your experience was. Things like that can also help. And then, you know, also, I actually have a B2B utilities client that their sample size is smaller. So, they do send out the emails to get people to respond to the survey, but they also will actually call them up and reach out to the contacts individually and say, hey, we just sent out this survey via PeopleMetrics. We'd really appreciate if you would answer. So obviously, I know not all sample sizes are small enough to do that. That would be taking a lot of time. But there are little things that you can do to help people answer. And then the other, I would say, more obvious one is offering some sort of incentive. So I know, for instance, we have a client in the restaurant business, and they will offer, a coupon, and you can enter to get the coupon for their next visit, or a meal free, things like that.
I'd love to just admit those are great tips, Courtney. Just a couple of them to expand on. You said mobile. Absolutely, making it mobile friendly is a way to make sure that you're going to get enough people responding. More and more people are taking surveys and giving feedback mobile. And you can also brand it in a way that's attractive, right? So it can be, the email invitation can be in your branded colors, your branded logo. You can make it look and feel like it's something that's part of the experience that they're having. And indeed that is. So, one of the things we've said this on PeopleMetrics Live before, and I've written this in my book, the experience your customers have taking your survey is part of the customer experience. It's part of their journey. It's a touch point that you're interacting with them. Even if you're doing it yourself or doing it through a partner like PeopleMetrics, you're creating an experience for that customer. And that's why I would always say to folks who want to ask customers more questions than they need to, just remember every second that you're taking the customer's time is an experience that customer has with you, right? So you got to ask as few questions as you possibly can to get you the answers you need to improve the experience, right? That's sort of the bottom line. And, get all of those things that Courtney said will dramatically improve your chances of getting that feedback.
I think that's a great segue too, Sean, to the second bullet we have there on that third column, which is the point, and we've talked about this a lot in PeopleMetrics Live too, is that the point of getting the answers to these questions is to act. And we've done a session too about the differences between taking individual and aggregate action. But if you guys want to just give an overview of what that means exactly and how that ties back to the questions, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So Courtney, you want to grab that one?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, there's, individual action and then the aggregate action. Individual would be something more like those real-time alerts that we were talking about. So, an alert gets sent out saying, hey, this customer might have not had the best experience. And then in turn, you can actually follow up with them to understand what went wrong in the interaction and how they can improve upon it in the future. So that would be, a one-to-one individual action. Now, the aggregate is more so something that you can do to help improve the organization as a whole, almost like the company culture we were talking about. And, obviously I would say personally, text analytics is a great tool for that. And to be able to see greater themes within the company as a whole, to see what's going well, what might not be going well. And that's just kind of an easier way to kind of see in a greater whole what's going on in the company.
And Courtney, these also kind of connect with each other, right? So if you're working alerts and you're seeing that there's a certain root cause to all of these alerts, and we've done a PeopleMetrics Live on root cause, but root cause is like what's really the reason for the alert to be delivered, to be launched in the first place. And let's say it's like wait time or something on the phone at a contact center. And you keep seeing this wait time, that gives you a clue that wait time is a trigger, a root cause of a poor experience. And then if you work on reducing wait time, then what you'll see is there'll be fewer alerts coming out to begin with. Problem alerts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you brought that up because I had an example of that with a company that I work with, a healthcare company. And, due to COVID, there were a lot of processy changes. And we basically worked with them to kind of rework their survey to make sense in accordance to what they're actually doing now. Their processes change with people having to wait outside of the clinic versus going directly in, things like that. And, by reworking the survey, we were actually able to see that the long wait times very much correlated with the customer satisfaction, and it dipped down a lot during COVID-19 pandemic. And, by them being able to see how related those two were, they were actually able to implement a buzzer system so that when people were waiting outside, they could have a buzzer, wait in their car, go shopping, go get lunch, whatever they want to do. And then they have the buzzer so that they can be notified when they are actually ready to go back into the facility. So it was great to see that because it was an actual company-wide action item. It wasn't necessarily just individual, and it changed the business as a whole, and their net promoter score and customer satisfaction shot right back up, which was really exciting to see.
Our founder and CEO, Sean, wrote an amazing book about customer experience management called Listen or Die, 40 Lessons that Turn Customer Feedback into Gold. It's a deep dive into best practices for CX measurement and management strategy based off Sean's years of experience in the space, and you can easily read it front to back on an airplane ride. Pick up your copy today. It's available now on Amazon.
And that's such a great example, Courtney. Thank you for that. And it just goes to show, when you think of customer experience, this is not nice to have. Every company's customers are experiencing something with a company, right? Whether you like it, whether you measure it ever, whether you do anything like that about it, these things are going on consistently, right? And, the best companies are the ones who are figuring out how to do things like what you just said and using data in real time to improve that, right? This isn't a market research study. Market research studies are great, by the way. I've done lots of them. There's a beginning and end to them. You get an answer to a question, and sometimes you do something about it, sometimes you don't. This is real-time feedback that's coming in consistently that you can use continuously to improve your business. Customer experience is an operational issue in many ways. And it's a strategic, you have to have strategy around it too. But it is very operational too. Just had to throw that in because I love that example so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's great. A great example of seeing everything coming in and looking at the bigger picture and saying, how can we, yes, improve the individual customer's experience, but also, have, everybody benefits from a system like that. I would love more buzzer systems. That sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, guys, anything else before we go into a little Q&A? All right. Yeah, I've got one question here. Question today is, should you follow up with, and we've touched on this a little bit, but should you follow up with customers who had good experiences or only the customers who had bad experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll throw my 2 cents and Courtney, follow up whenever you'd like. Clients buy programs to follow up on really bad experiences. Like that's the low-hanging fruit. That's something that absolutely should be done. The ones that are good are great. A lot of the times that maybe the customer isn't followed up on with those, but the employee who delivers that great experience has some feedback. You share that with them, especially if the customer indicated that they're one of the reasons why it happened. And that's how you can really leverage both great and bad experience data, always. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too, Courtney.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that most of the time programs are made obviously to find those pain points and improve upon them. And I know that it also depends on the sample size. So of course, if you have a smaller sample size, then hey, by all means, follow up with the positive experiences too. It doesn't hurt. It lets them know that you're happy that they responded. So, it's definitely situational, but if you can, it's great. But if not, understandable.
Courtney, that's such a great point about like the type of program you have. Like, so if you have B2B client with just very few customers, indeed, almost every one of them can be followed up on, and probably you'd want to. If you have if you have a consumer business with, millions of customers, it's not even possible to probably follow up on all the poor experiences. You have to kind of rank them around customer lifetime value or something that makes sense in terms of allocating your own resources. And it gets back to the whole strategy thing in the beginning. Like, what are we going to put our energy into? and what will give us the biggest return and what will give our customers the biggest return in the long run. That's how you get the biggest return, I think, ultimately.
That was great. And I've actually got one other question that came in that kind of ties back to what you were saying about, how you rank large volumes of feedback.
Yeah.
But the other question here I've got is unsolicited or solicited feedback more important?
Yeah. I mean, I'll throw my 2 cents on it. And I think it depends on your industry. There are some industries that don't really have unsolicited feedback. Unsolicited feedback are things like, people who are providing feedback on review sites, people who are sending you feedback when you didn't ask them for it. So maybe it's just an email, general email to a support line. Maybe it's through a Zendesk ticket. I don't know. There's all these different ways that you can kind of obtain unsolicited feedback. Solicited feedback is what we're talking about today, is, reaching out to ask customers about their experience. If you're in an industry where unsolicited feedback is very popular and there's lots of customers and prospects reading about it, then I would say that is extremely important. And those industries that are not, then obviously it's not. But I would say there's a good balance even in those where solicited and unsolicited are important. You want to balance it out. Because what we've seen, Courtney, is if you're really good at the solicited, sometimes that will make the unsolicited negative feedback a lot less. So if you're in the process, if you're continuing to follow up on a poor experience that you hear of from a solicited approach, and you make it right with that customer is much less likely to head onto a review site and provide a negative review.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think having a program like something like PeopleMetrics is very important to be able to get that solicited feedback, because that can often bleed into the unsolicited feedback and make it more positive. Because oftentimes when I receive an email, or just the other day I got a call from a store owner who followed up because I wrote a Google review. Just the act of them calling me or sending the email lets me know, well, they care. I'm important to them. I'm a customer. I'm a paying customer. I'm loyal. And it makes me feel like, okay, like they're listening, this is great, and I'm more likely to come back. So yeah, I definitely think, like you said, Sean, depending on the industry, B2B companies maybe are more so focused on the solicited feedback, whereas something like hotel chains, which you can do the solicited feedback, but you're more likely to receive the unsolicited on places like TripAdvisor, Google Review, things like that. So yeah, it's all situational for sure.
Thanks, guys. Any final words before we close out for the day?
Yeah, I would just say that, the overall, I think key theme from today is, if you're not taking some time just to step back and take a look at your customer experience program, it's really worth it. Take a day, do an offsite, call us. We would help you. We'd be happy to facilitate that. But really ask some tough questions. I think it's just a really important lesson, I think, from all of our PM lives. This is an important one.
Definitely. I know, especially if you're getting started with a program like this, you just want to get started, but it's good to, you got to start with these questions. So thanks guys for this overview of these best practices for developing a customer experience strategy, and for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. This has been really fun. And I hope that this has been a valuable conversation for everyone that we've got on the line too. I'll make sure that when this goes up on our YouTube channel, we include a link to download that diagram that we shared, so that you can use it as a reference when you are developing your own CX strategy, or taking a pause and reassessing, what your goals are moving forward. And on behalf of everyone here at PeopleMetrics, thank you for joining us for PeopleMetrics Live. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe right here so you never miss an update. And have you checked out other sessions of PeopleMetrics Live yet? Click right here to watch them all. I'll see you there.